Sunday morning, week 8. Um, Stupid London game, right? Ben, it's the Eagles playing in London. I got a party going on next door. Everyone's hanging out. I got to come home, do a show because it's my job and I like this job. But why are the Eagles playing at 9:30 in the morning? I hate
Yeah,
it.
man, I see you repping the birds on the
Yeah,
shirt, but that's
I suck.
brutal. Bad timing for you. Partying early. I
Yeah,
respect
yeah.
that.
By party, I mean there's people over there. Some people are having some drinks. Not a big morning time drinker personally, but just in the sense of people getting together, having some fun and everything.
Have you been watching? I have not seen the game. I've been how the birds looking.
Yeah, in between the 20s, they're fantastic, and
Mm.
then they get into the red zone and mistakes are made. Wentz threw a bad pick. Um,
Yeah,
but Blake Bortles is just really bad, and Jim Schwartz. Look, they're finally bringing pressure. It doesn't even matter at this rate, but Blake Bortles, I'm surprised that he's still,
in the
an
league.
NFL quarterback. Yeah,
Yeah. No,
it's
Wentz. Not to hash rehash last week, but that last drive was really costly for me.
oh,
He
big time. Oh,
he
big for me.
missed some big ones, and they should have won that game. He should have found the end zone. Some bad plays. The one into Alshon, silly
Oh,
mistake.
Smallwood was wide open on that
Mhm.
on that 3rd and 2. Yeah, it was same thing happened today with Perkins. But let's move on. Sometimes you get a little nonsense talking there. Let the viewership climb. Let everybody know that we're here. We've got we have 10 games
Yep.
to talk about. So we'll get through all of them as we go up to 12 o'clock Eastern time. Let me get this retweet out there as well. Um, so Kansas City and Denver. Obviously, this is one of those games you expect not to see competitive very much, but Denver's just been absolutely bludgeoned in the run game, and Kareem Hunt looks like an entirely different running back than he did over the first few games of the season. 53 and a half total. They're 10-point favorites. They have a slate high 30, or I'm sorry, the second highest total, 31.8. Uh, you have to expect both teams to air it out to some extent, but at least projected game script would dictate that Kareem Hunt should get a lot of work again.
Absolutely, and he's and I mean, he's been doing it via the past last couple weeks, and that's certainly ups the upside. But at the same time, I'm with you. The 20 touches seems more than reasonable. They should be leading. He gets goal line work. Mahomes, I'm sure will get his, but I definitely have some interest in Kareem Hunt. The big issue, and we'll obviously touch upon a lot of different guys today. There's a lot of running backs in that same price point
Right.
that I like. I think a lot of people like. So it's just how much of each do I want, and can I get the right mix and match combos?
Right. That is what it comes down to. I'm still gonna. I still like Hunt quite a bit though. Like comparatively speaking, uh, it does. It does feel like his floor is relatively low, but he does have the ceiling, and that's kind of what matters. But yeah, look, you have Connor, you have Mixon in that projected high scoring game. Barkley's just been a monster all season long. David Johnson's in there as well. Um, what are you doing with the rest of Kansas City? Because outside of Hunt, this is still a stacked offensive squad.
Absolutely. You could, look up and down. So what I think is going to happen, and I fall into this trap too, I would say Tyreek Hill gets somewhat lost of all their weapons. It's tough to build if you jam him up there just because of the multitude of other positions that I think people want to pay up in. Travis Kelce is kind of in a similar boat. I did make room for him. I think he's clearly the best tight end on the slate. And the price, yeah, it's pretty expensive for a tight end, but at the same time, if you compare that to some of the other, like where the receivers fall, I would take him if that was all consolidated. I think he's got certainly the upside to get there, and even a floor if you want to go there for cash.
Yeah, I think it's kind of difficult to go wrong with Kelsey. I guess the problem I have is, have you not found it difficult to fit Kelsey in? There are a couple cheap options in running back at wide receiver, of which I like, but um, there's so many running backs and wide receivers. at 6.5 plus $1,000, just say DraftKings pricing, that makes it hard for me to pay up at tight end. Maybe you have a different approach than I do today.
No, I agree with that. To me, it made it more of a priority to get some Kelsey because I don't think
Sure.
he's going to be the ownership for the sole purpose of an opportunity cost.
Yeah,
And
I think you're right.
that's really where that came from. So I'm with you. I mean, even we'll obviously talk about Gurley later. There's a couple guys on the slate. It's not them themselves. It's just what does it do to the rest of your lineup if you do plunge and take them?
Yeah, exactly. And if you throw Kelsey in there, it's surely differentiating you from like everyone, or at least it feels that way.
Yeah.
You'll see some lineups where there's like a full punt running back and receiver, and then Kelsey's in there. But I do definitely think it's going to be different for sure. On the other side with Denver, you have no Royce Freeman, so you have Philip Lindsay down here. He's 5,200 on DraftKings, which is interesting because you also have like Kerryon Johnson, whose price tag remains very, very affordable. And then we have other running backs in that similar range and cheaper that we'll get into later on in the show. Um, and then, of course, Manny Sanders has been the one reliable pass catching weapon on this team this season, while Cortland Sutton and Demaryius Thomas are either racking up garbage time yards like Thomas or waiting for their big game like Cortland Sutton, even though I personally think it's still going to happen. I'm holding out hope eventually that he will have that 2 touchdown 100-yard game. He has the tools. I just don't know if Keenum does. What are your thoughts here on the Denver side?
Yeah, there's a couple plays, I think we all think that the Chiefs are going to rack up a ton of points, and that puts these guys in the conversation. There's nobody on Denver that I made it priority to get. I have some Lindsey. I have some Sutton, actually. I think, we'll talk about Martavis Bryant. You're going to get Sutton at a fraction of the ownership, and I'm with you. I think the big game is going to come. It's a lot of risk. Could I say it's today? Yeah, it could be, but we have no idea. I've been waiting on it for a while now. So I did go there, but honestly, I have just as much interest in the Chiefs defense if you want to go against the grain. I think in a lot of ways, Denver could struggle mightily here and not just trying to stop Mahomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I know a few weeks ago you had interest in Denver's D at home, though, against Kansas City.
Yep,
This one at Arrowhead, a little different, huh?
certainly different. And, Mahomes was unbelievable. That was, I think, his most impressive game in my eyes because
Oh,
Denver brought the heat. They got to him a lot, and he found ways to escape.
no, you're absolutely right. Like if they're no, you're Denver's defense didn't actually play poorly that
Not at
game.
all.
Outside of I think Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt, was that the game where he no, yeah, 19 for 121. Yeah, so he had a big game on the ground, but they did Mahomes just pulled Houdini acts out of his ass all game. You're right. That was not on Denver, but now it's at Arrowhead. This could be ugly.
Different. Yeah. I mean, Arrowhead's one of those places I actually think it's a big boost for the Chiefs defense specifically. They've played much better at home even this year. And Keenum, he's certainly not above creating some big turn. And that could be, I have some Kareem Hunt with the Chiefs defense and hope that maybe they force some turnovers. Hunt gets in the end zone a couple of times.
Yeah.
And the rest of the Chiefs really aren't asked to do too much.
I did a little bit of that with James Conner and the Steelers defense
That's
too,
another one.
just because they're so cheap. And really defense is ugly this week unless you want to pay a premium for like the Bears. I don't really know if there's anybody that you love anyway. So this is a week I don't mind taking a stab at teams like that. Let's move on to Pittsburgh and Cleveland as we make that clean segue, Ben. Pittsburgh D, I don't think is crazy. They're almost the minimum. They're almost minimum priced. As I said, I'm trying to make room for other players, and the first place I look is always going to be at defense. Quarterback pricing's flat again, so I don't mind that spot. But then again, James Conner, you figure to see a boatload of work. And that seems like an interesting pairing once again, as we've seen so many times this season, or at least James Conner getting a ton of work.
Yeah, I mean, they use him time and time again by the goal line. He runs tough, can catch the ball. Price is, I think, pretty standard, fair. And Cleveland's defense isn't. I think they're a pretty good unit, but the way to
Sure.
really attack them, I think, is via someone like Connor. Um, Pittsburgh, they played. I think that was week 1 where they tied. I have a feeling the Steelers are going to be ready for this game. Expect them to play well at home. The defense, I'm with you. I like the Bears defense, and we'll talk about them later, but it's $1,800 you're saving. That's serious money. I mean, that's taking a mediocre player into someone in one of these big name weapons where you use that salary. So don't mind that. The question I have is, you got Antonio Brown and Juju. I see the case for them. I had trouble getting to them on most of
Me
my
too.
lineups. Yeah.
Me too. Yeah. By the way, Calais Campbell just went to sack Wentz and he dipped out, and Campbell comes up to him and I go, "What did you just do?"
See who
Yeah,
taking a page out of Mahomes' book.
right. Well, I mean, let's give Wentz a little bit of credit here. I mean, he's been
I'm a
doing this
Wentz fan.
for a little while,
Still a
but
little bitter.
I used to be a Wentz fan,
Ooh.
and I'm an Eagles fan. No, I'm kidding. I still love the guy. Yeah, for me, does it not feel like Connor's easier to fit than Juju and Brown? Just I think from the way the positions work out.
Oh yeah, 100%. And there's no doubt that both of those guys. I mean, they're in the bucket of their elite talents. They're always in play.
Of
When you
course.
get low ownership, that adds to the appeal. It's just, God, when you it's going to be one of these situations. If you pay for them, the way you construct the rest of your lineup is going to be really dicey. At least that's how I found it.
Yeah, especially Brown at that price.
Mhm.
Especially Brown. What do you make of a Vance McDonald? Obviously a pretty volatile tight end. Goes from 2 targets against Atlanta to catching 7 of 8 against Cincinnati. We've seen, some pretty sizable games from him this year. And he is the pass catching back here, or a pass catching tight end, well ahead of the blocking Jesse James. But once again, this is more so just a shallow tight end position, and I'm going to try and rattle off as many names as possible and see what you think on them.
He did not make the cut for me. Price just a little much. If he was maybe fringe 3K, I could see it. I just found money when I found, say, I landed on that. I found the extra money to go get, some of the guys in the 4K. Njoku's included in that. I
Well, I
don't
think
mind.
even OJ Howard at 39, or
For him, yeah,
what is that? Yeah, Howard is
in the
actually what,
threes.
30. Yeah, yeah, right. 2,900 or 3,900, only $200 more.
Mhm.
Um, Cleveland's offense. Are you doing anything with Cleveland's offense? Like I know
Nope.
Nick Chubb was the the chalk play last week, and I don't have any, take a victory lap. He was obviously chalk. Um, I didn't play him, but I think I instead went Curry on at a slightly more increased price, so I don't have an issue with that. Chubb and cash, obviously, but that was a much better matchup just in terms of Tampa not being a good team. Forget about them having I guess a serviceable run defense. I think you could find a tough time running here against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and I think the game script is not going to be as, not that it, the Browns were down and they were playing catch up, but uh, this is a game, and I don't have a ton of interest in Cleveland as a whole. I will go back to Duke Johnson at basically, I would assume, no ownership this week. Don't think he's going to be too popular. If they fall behind, he should get that pass catching first crack at it. But on the whole, I'm more inclined to play the Steelers defense with you than really try to attack Baker and the rest of the Browns.
Yeah,
There's just not a lot there.
I you want to talk about making it tough to get people in the lineups? Like this one is just one that was tough for me. I mean, Jarvis Landry 7,200, right? So how am I fitting Jarvis? Like how am I prioritizing Jarvis? I don't think there's any real way I can do that. Um, I don't have a problem with Chubb like that much, but there's other players that I like ahead of him, above and below. So yeah, if you want to just name every guy that might have a decent game, I guess you could throw Chubb into the mix, but I would rather just take a stand here. Also, Duke Johnson played 51% of the snaps last week. Nick Chubb played 66%. So it's not like there was a massive difference in snaps. He still got plenty. Duke Johnson was still on the field a lot of that game.
Yeah, and like I said, the ownership, unlike last week, it's going to be non-existent. He's an afterthought, especially we'll get to Jalen Richard. There's some other guys down there that are going to suck up all that ownership. And
Raheem Mostert. What about the dude Raheem?
there's some There's more creative player. Every week, there are guys that I didn't know existed until the week that are coming up, especially the Jets. We'll get there. They have 0 players left. I've never seen
I
that.
do this the snap chart. I haven't because I had family issues the past couple of weeks, but I do like the snap count, target, this and that. So I know these names just from putting them in there every week. But yeah, we'll get to Mustard shortly. Let's talk about the Giants and Washington. Saquon Barkley's just been a beast this year. He's produced 22 plus fantasy points in every game this season. I mean, he is just an animal out there. He's incredible, man. And when he's not producing on the ground, he's producing in the passing game. He is proving right now to have one of the highest floors in the game. But he's another guy that if you're getting up to Barkley, it means you will be sacrificing elsewhere. But this is one of those games where the initial game script would figure to really, really suit him well.
He's one of the most interesting guys on the entire slate because he has a great floor. He's super expensive, and he's not going to be popular because Gurley is just basically
Yeah.
the same as him, and everyone wants Gurley. Or
Yep.
you could take the slew of the 7K running backs. I don't honestly know what to do with him in that sense because it's such an odd thing where I like him almost in cash, but at the same time, I think he's an under the radar tournament play. Those things are almost never exclusive because usually cash guys are, somewhat popular, pretty obvious, good floors. And I think he checks those boxes. It's just, this is a week where lineup construction to me is one of the more important aspects. Never mind the plays, just how you organize your salary. And that's what makes it tough to go get Barkley. I don't have that much, but I wish I kind of had more. I just didn't have the room to get him.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
He catches
Like if
some
you're
balls.
playing a lot of lineups, you have to get some Barkley in there because of what he's capable of doing. But I think one of the things is like, can you get similar production in, in tournaments? Do you have a similar ceiling from guys like Connor or Hunt or I dare I say Duke Johnson with Byron Leftwich in there now that Mike McCoy's gone?
David.
I think there are at least ways that are cheaper to get those type of ceilings in there for sure.
Yeah, I think it's more that Saquon brings the floor where it seems like 20 is almost the minimum with that guy. And
Yeah.
David Johnson, Hunt, all those guys, they have some blow up potential for sure. And
Oh yeah.
I'm with you though, in tournaments, you're not as concerned with that. You're looking for the ceiling and they have it. And the extra 1,500, 1,600, 2,000, it comes into play. Really, it's a priority this week for me to save as much as I can.
Yeah, but when you have Gurley and Barkley that you just know every single week, it's like, all right, well, Gurley's giving you 25 to 30.
Every week.
Yeah, it's insane. And the thing is, Gurley could have an inefficient game on the ground, but it doesn't matter because they're still gonna have so many red zone trips, and he could punch 3 in. Doesn't even matter. And Barkley's just so involved that it doesn't matter. So yeah, in cash, like you're working Barkley in there. You're pretty much just saying, all right, I'll take my 20 plus points and move on. And I don't think anyone's complaining about that. I just think in tournaments, there are different ways to go about it, is all.
Yeah. No, I think that's kind of where it's at. And again, you said it. You can't play all these guys. As nice as it would be, especially if you're not playing hundreds of lineups, you're not going to be able to get leverage on the 8 premier running backs and the top receivers and defense. You gotta save somewhere.
For sure. Well, the rest of this game then, um, does it do anything for you? I mean, I don't think either of us expect it to be a shootout. Right now, you're looking at a total of 44. The Redskins, last I checked, are 1 point favorites. Both teams have like a 21 or 20 point implied total, or a 22 and 21 point implied total. It's not. It doesn't seem like the most appealing game, but like when you have Beckham and Barkley, guys that just have monster usage in terms of the offense being so concentrated. And then on the other side, there isn't a whole lot of that, except I want to know what your thoughts are on Adrian Peterson, who's been very boomer bust, but also figures that if this game stays close, could see 20 plus carries.
I have some Odell. I like him. 7,500. He was one of the elite guys that I actually thought was slightly underpriced. Don't mind going there. The targets will be there. Tournament only for me. I don't have much on the Redskins. I believe Chris Thompson is in, is he not?
Correct.
Um, I almost want to say I'm going there. I'm not. I still have kind of like the Lindsey even carry on, probably slightly ahead of him.
Alex
But
Smith will have him dead by the first
that's
quarter.
true too. Alex Smith is on the short list of people who has really let me down so far this year. They're winning games, but it's been ugly. You said it. The Redskins offense, good luck trying to nail, Jordan Reed. There's a ton of guys who are going to be out there. One of them may have a good game, but more often than not, they don't have tournament upside anyway. And
Right.
you're playing roulette trying to guess which one of these guys is going to have the hot hand.
And I'd been very high on Jordan Reed a couple weeks ago, and obviously I was wrong about it. I really thought I really thought you're looking at a game where everyone is either super banged up or out. And then Jordan Reed is still just, Vernon Davis, of course, scores on a 20-yard touchdown, of course. But this is just one of those teams that I can't trust right now. To me, Adrian Peterson is one of those guys that I actually don't mind here because I don't think it would. How much would it take, honestly, for the script to flip on its head where the Giants are up by 2 scores and Washington stops running the football?
That's what scares me. It's a tricky situation for AP, and there's we'll talk about I Jordan Howard is someone at the same price point that I'm pretty interested in. We'll get to that game. So there's just a multitude of options at some price points, and I had to prioritize. And a lot of the guys on the Redskins, even in plays that I kind of liked, there were 2 or 3 guys from other games that I liked even more at the same price point.
Yeah, and I think that would be the best point to make because I don't think Peterson's a bad play.
No.
But you also do have Johnson, Lindsey, who is probably going to get plenty of work in both phases of the offense. Jordan Howard, that's an interesting one. We'll get there. Actually, we'll get there a couple games from now. Let's talk about Detroit and Seattle. This Seattle team, from a fantasy standpoint, has been to a large extent just an absolute nightmare, right? Russell Wilson is refusing to run. I know he had a couple games where you saw a few attempts, but his high in rushing yards this year is 21 yards. It's certainly taken away from that element of his game that made him so valuable. He's top 20 fantasy points twice, but hasn't exceeded 22. So his ceiling's been super low this year. And then you have this timeshare at running back where it's like, yeah, sure, Chris Carson has looked solid, but then what are we doing with Mike? Does Mike Davis come in there and heat up and start to get some work? And obviously, Rashad Penny even comes back after not logging a single offensive snap in Week 5 and has 9 attempts. Well, it was a blowout, but I think you understand what I'm saying. And then
Absolutely.
Doug Baldwin is who knows what's going on with Baldwin. This team is impossible. We'll talk about Detroit after Seattle.
Yeah, I've been trying to. I thought buy low on the Seahawks multiple times this year. They played the Ram, and it's the scary part for a fantasy thing is they're not being punished on the field. What they're doing, it's kind of they're in the hunt for sure already. They're not playing terrible, and that's not going to incentivize them to change. If they're getting killed, Russell Wilson might say, you know what, I need to start rushing 15 times a game. But they found something really controlling the clock, being kind of conservative and trying to slow these games down. Now, Wilson's still running for his life. It just makes it tough from a fantasy perspective. I like Doug Baldwin. I've been on Lockett the entire year, making the switch this week. I think Baldwin has a pretty nice game for, I think he's 5,500. Yeah, 55. So that's really all I have, though, from the Seahawks. They're inside. That helps, even if it's a road game. Could get up and down. It's hard to trust Russell Wilson with all these other quarterback options.
Yeah, it is. I just don't have much interest, honestly. If anything, put me on the other side. Curran Johnson. Dude, look, this guy is. I think he's good. He could be special. He had that 71-yard run last week, but he also broke off a few really nice runs. 19 for 158. He didn't score and still had a big game. This Seattle front this Seattle defense, um, their run defense has shown nothing to prove that they're just going to come in there and clog everything up. I think Kurian can have another strong game here in one that 3-point favorites at home. It certainly seems like a game where Kurian should get a lot of work, maybe 20 carries for the first time in his career.
I hope. I mean, we have talked about on Three Fellas and a couple other shows that we've done together. I'm a huge Carry-On fan. I thought that they needed to give him the reins. Seems like they're doing that. Obviously, Theo Riddick being out sped that process up. I'll say this. I think he gets first crack at kind of being the workhorse, but if he's not as effective, a guy like Golden Tate bounces back in my eyes. I think 6K, good price, at home, likes being at home, good splits there. Against a Seattle defense that isn't what we've kind of used to seeing there. So don't mind Carry-On. If he gets rolling, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of nice that he's due for some kind of touchdown regression in a good way. I know they like to use Blunt around the goal line, but it's, Carry-On did get some cracks last week at finding end zone, didn't convert. But yeah, price is fine, but I'm not putting all my eggs in that the Lions are just going to become this running team. I still think Stafford and the receivers are fine plays in GPP.
Okay. Yeah. Look, I don't hate that. I will say too, though, another thing that in my opinion bolsters Johnson's value is that Theo Riddick remains out, right? So being that Riddick is out, this is someone that was seeing between 3, 12, 7, 5 targets. Now you're talking about a spot. Nice work. Nice defense, asshole. Now you're talking about Kurian Johnson potentially, going from 1 to 2 targets to, if this game's very competitive and they need to start looking to the running backs, potentially 5 or 6. I could see that being the case. And that's something that I really, really like. So I still think Kurian's reasonably priced. Last week he saw 59% of the snaps to LeGarrette Blount, 33, and Amir Abdullah, 11. Wouldn't be surprised if Kurian plays like 70% of snaps. So we'll see. We will see what happens with that one. And we move on to Tampa Bay and Cincinnati. This game, you're talking a very high total. I expect to see plenty of ownership here, Ben. Jameis Winston has been forced to throw for, just massive passing volume recently. And it doesn't even matter if he makes mistakes. He's thrown 2 picks in every game this season, but you're looking at 365 passing yards, 395. And a lot of this is occurring because the run game combined for 51 yards on 20 carries between Jones, Jacquizz Rodgers, and Peyton Barber last week. Now, the funny thing about this matchup is Cincinnati's run defense is really weak, but I still don't think this is a team that's going to be able to get anything going against them on the ground, unless you want to roll the dice on a dirt cheap Peyton Barber. But I don't know. Let's talk about this Tampa Bay offense first, because you have O.J. Howard, you have Mike Evans, you have Chris Godwin, you have Deshaun. There's just so many different players that we can talk about that are going to have at least some ownership across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are going to try to stack this game up. I see it. I have a lot of interest in the Bengals side. We'll get there, but I don't know. Tampa, it's tough. Nothing really stands out. I think everyone's pretty fairly priced. I have no interest in the running game. It's just tough to rely on them. Mike Evans, he's a good player, but 7,800 is not exactly a bargain for a guy that's, he's been underwhelming. Yeah, he had a good against the Saints, but I don't know how many people were really on that. And that was a long time ago now. So do I have some? Yeah, I do. I have some Godwin in the mid-range, but nothing really stood out from Tampa's side. I get Jameis if you want to go there. Personally, I have Cam Newton ahead of him. Probably a little against the grain there, and I get that because you talk about this is one of these situations. You can play Jameis, and then on other teams, you can play the Bengals defense, and I totally get either play. Both of them can work out because Jameis throws a couple picks, he fumbles, and then he throws for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
Those are both distinct possibilities. I can't fault anyone for going there. For me, though, I don't have any Bucs stacks. It's just a piece of a guy here or there, depending on the salary.
Yeah, I was leaning heavily towards it at first, and then I kinda just backed off of it because it feels like it's just gonna be a spot that everyone's looking to go toward, and you know what the biggest reason to have me back off of it was, and you mentioned it, that Mike Evans is 7,800, and I just had so much trouble, like, plugging in Evans at that price when and that means I'm definitely sacrificing a lot of other guys that I
Oh,
just trust a lot more, man. I just trust them more from a ceiling and a floor standpoint. You know, it's funny. Evans in his first 3 games, all of which Fitzpatrick started, put up excellent numbers in all 3 of them. And then I don't think we should even count the Chicago game because that was disgusting and both quarterbacks played. He hasn't scored in any of the 3 games that Winston's played. Look, is regression due? Yeah, of course. Are we talking about a spot where he could blow up? Yeah, I think so. But I don't mind going to a guy like Godwin here. Godwin, look, is there do you need a touchdown from him? Yeah, pretty much. But he also has the potential to score 2 touchdowns in a game like this. And I just think he'll easily be the least focused on player from a fantasy standpoint. You know, people will still go to Deshaun Jackson because of that upside. If I'm going to just go cheap, I think Godwin to me, Godwin and OJ Howard. OJ Howard has outsnapped Cameron Brate over the past 2 weeks. He's outsnapped him. I have it right here. Hold on. He's outsnapped Cameron Brate 97-61 and out targeted him 13-5 over the last 2 weeks. Like OJ Howard is becoming a lot more involved. So I don't think he's a crazy play at all. Plus, he has big play potential, and the Cincinnati defense doesn't scare me. So I think I'm actually going to look to go cheaper with the Tampa Bay players when I do get them in, just because then I can still, I think, be a little bit different than the field in some spots.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. There were
Uh,
some spots where I did take Evans just because I think the upside is there. But
sure.
having said that, when I look even just at the receivers, if you told me one of those guys gives me 1x, I think he's the heavy favorite. I really do. We've just seen time. It's been a bad run for him, and that is alarming when you have guys like Odell and AJ Green, and just a lot of other big name guys where I don't see many ways that they don't at least return a serviceable game.
Right.
And that's scary.
Right. Yeah. This isn't saying not to play Evans. It's just that I'm having a tough time getting him in there and feeling great about it, is all I'm saying. Um, what about the other side? This Tampa Bay defense is just flat out terrible, man. I mean, they they're just ravaged everywhere in the middle of the field, uh, on the outside. It doesn't matter really who you are, tight ends, slot receivers, wideouts. Like you just they're so bad, Ben, and that has a lot to do with why Winston has been so not efficient, but just the voluminous work, like 360, 390 yards. Um, they do have a decent run defense, but Mixon played 77% of snaps last week, uh, even with them getting crushed by Kansas City. And then you have AJ Green, who, as you mentioned, is just an absolute monster. But I think I'm going to go down the Boyd here in a lot of spots too, because uh, if this offense is going to be humming, which I think it could be and should be, Boyd should be involved too.
I did not
What do
look
you
at
think?
Boyd. I
No?
am. I don't want to say all in because I'm not, but Mixon is on the short list of my favorite plays of the year this week. This is the week for him.
Wow.
I
Okay. Look at
really
that.
really like the spot. The
I mean,
one
I do. I like him too. To be clear, I definitely like
my
him.
biggest hesitation isn't him. It's that Kareem Hunt and Connor also are in very great spots. David Johnson's there. And so there's just a multitude of guys, and that's what's preventing me from really unloading because I think it's unnecessary.
Right.
If it was more of a dead zone, uh, listen, Tampa's defense is terrible. Gerald McCoy and Quan Alexander are probably the two best guys they had. They're both gone.
Mhm.
It should be gashed. It's somewhat. I'm not.
They're
We're not
also
saying.
missing Vinny Curry on the D
Yeah,
on
the
the
D line
end.
is in shambles. It's not the best weather in Cincinnati. Not that that's overly important, but this just really feels like a game where Cincinnati on the ground is effective. And Mixon, it's his backfield right now. He can do a little in the pass here and there. He was not on the slate last week I used him on the shorter slate, and the game got away from them. The Chiefs can do that to a team, so I don't bank into that. This couldn't be a more different scenario for a guy that I really do think that Mixon is in the spot where he returns a big game. He should be somewhat popular, but that's not stopping me from going way overweight.
I don't blame you, and I think just the depth at the position will keep him from being mega popular too. At
Yep.
least you would think, right?
It's hard to imagine. I mean, if he was mega popular, that would make one of these other really good spot running backs under-owned, and I don't. I mean, I could just rattle off all these names: Gurley, Saquon,
Right.
Connor.
Hunt. I
There's a
think
lot.
Hunt's going to be very, very popular here
And I
too.
think Connor is too. So I expect
Right.
them all to have some decent clip in terms of ownership. You're not going to get Mixon at 6% or anything crazy,
I bet
but
he's around 12 or 15.
I was thinking like 15, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll take that. I really think that this just is a pretty damn good spot when you look at everything.
Yeah, agree. And I'm a huge Mixon fan. I
Me
love
too.
this guy. On the field, of course. On
Yes,
the
we have
field.
to.
Don't
It's
let's
always a disclaimer with him.
I know, I know. Like when we talk about this, the off
Terrible
the
human,
fields,
but
we're
good on.
not right. Yeah, no one cares about our opinion of what off the field. Um, Uzuma played 97% of snaps last week. I get so many questions about him. But I mean, he had 2 targets. Like, it's just I'd rather go to OJ Howard in the same game at a similar price. That's where I'm at. And then what are your thoughts on AJ Green?
So I have so much Mixon that it naturally mitigated it a little. Uh, the problem is if I use AJ Green and Mixon together, I think that you should use Dalton in that spot. I'm not overly big on the Bengals stack this week. There are teams, of course, where I don't have Mixon, and on those, I have a lot of AJ Green. He's just unlike Mike Evans. He's the kind of guy I feel no pressure with. I would be pretty stunned if he has a complete landmine game. He just kind of does his thing. I'm
Mm,
not sure how big the ceiling is because I don't know how needed he'll be, but
yeah. Well, and you have Boyd that can catch touchdowns now too.
that's what I'm
And
saying. It's another
yeah,
weapon. And again, this is would I really be stunned to see Cincy's defense get after it? No. So there's a
right.
lot of ways where the Bengals could be effective without needing AJ Green.
And when Eifert or when Tyler Eifert was out before, like in seasons past, you didn't have Boyd to rely on that could be a body in the red zone. You know what I mean? Like it was, and you didn't really have any true running back depth that you felt good about either. So, yeah, I think that I like Green here, but he feels could he rack up a 2 touchdown 100-yard game? Absolutely, but it's also a spot where he could have like 6 for 60 and a touchdown, and that in 2018, it's not enough anymore.
No,
So
that's a good point. Yeah, the scoring dictates kind of the expectations are a little different than what we're used to seeing.
right, and you know what it is, this game, like, I fully expect this game to have a lot of scoring, but I also could see it being one of those games where it's just so spread out that the game stack might not work.
I don't love it. I really don't like. I don't have any game stacks with this game
Yeah.
in particular. I don't think it's the right blend for what I tried to do. And
I like
that's
Rams Green Bay a lot more just because that offense is so damn concentrated.
yeah. There's a couple other teams that I think for various reasons I prefer to stack than this one.
Alright, well, let's talk about some of them, after this. Chicago and the New York Jets. This game opened around, like, 6 or 6 or 7, I think now. I think the Bears are 10-point favorites now, last I looked. Yeah, 10 points. No surprise, you know? Yep, so we have Powell out for the season, and then you have, Robbie Anderson is, I believe, out. Anunwa is out. No Pryor. You're looking at Jermaine Kearse as your number 1 wide receiver here. It's insane. And then Crowell is going to have a real tough time running against the Chicago run defense that really hasn't given up that much. It's this seems like a really, really tough spot for Sam Darnold, who went 17 for 42 last time out.
It's not good. This is a real weird game. This is, I think, the weirdest game on the slate. And normally I would just say I don't have any interest in here. I have a ton of interest because you need some of these
I have
players.
interest too. Yeah.
It's Jermaine Kearse last week I've not that I've never seen anything like that, but the targets, that part I've never seen it. He could have got a 0 on 8 targets, and I would have said that's insane.
Yeah. Did you see his snap count though?
It was up.
90%.
That's what I'm saying. Like by random chance, you think he would have seen some more targets.
Darnold forgot he was on the field. It was
Well,
ridiculous.
he's not going to forget.
64 of 71 offensive snaps.
He's not going to forget this week because there is no one else on the field. It's just
Yeah.
him.
Mhm.
So I'm going right back to Jermaine Kearse. I think the ownership, which was, I know it's annoying that he let everyone down, but if you just look, he was popular in all different types of contests, high stakes, low stakes, cash. Sometimes you just have to say, you know what, that was a weird one. It's hard to forget. I'm going right back to him. 4,300. I think the targets have to be there today, even in a game where I don't think Darnold's going to be effective, just by necessity. Rashard Matthews is the other option. He's not even in the player pool. Like, it's not.
That's right.
Can't even use him. So
they literally picked him up off the street.
yeah, this is accurate. Trenton Cannon is taking Bilal Powell's role.
I actually think you're going to laugh. I actually don't think he's the craziest
I have some.
punt. Okay.
But
it's not that insane.
Who's that though? That guy's never heard of him.
He had the second highest spark score in the draft among running backs. He's one of those guys, like, remember you always heard Jerick McKinnon, but like 4 or 5 targets, 69 yards in the passing game, receiving last week. It's not crazy to say, okay, they go behind super early and Trenton Cannon is used and they just dump a bunch off to him, or hell, even they line him up in the slot. Who knows? I worry that Chicago just controls the time of possession of this game, like the entirety of it. But Cannon is dirt cheap. And you're going to see pretty much, I think when you look at like a Raheem Mostert, he's going to be, maybe I'm wrong, but actually, I'll put it as, I don't think really ownership matters with these type of guys. If you're playing them because you're trying to get some expensive players in there and hope that they can break off like a long run, which is actually possible.
It is what it is. Yeah. I have some purely for salary relief. I don't know. I'm stunned this guy has a picture on DraftKings. I don't know who he is. Never heard of him. I don't know where he went to college. He's filling a role that I think will be pertinent in a game like this. That's as simple as I could put it. I think that Darnold will need to look to the check down, and he's that guy. So 3,400, you don't need that much.
Yeah, and that's really all it comes down to. But yeah, Kearse and Cannon, specifically Kearse, just because I think Kearse is more cash viable. But
he's in my cash lineup. Yep.
Right. But if he sees 10 targets and catches like 7 of them, which will be tough when it comes to Sam Darnold, I think as crazy as it sounds after last week, he should still have a decent floor here. What are your thoughts on the Chicago side? I know you mentioned Jordan Howard. The game script really should favor him, but at this rate, who the hell knows what to expect with this dude?
I'm really banking that people have seen the last couple Bears games and they have a false narrative, or maybe I'm wrong, but I think that everyone else thinks that the Bears are something they're not, which is Trubisky slinging it all over, Tariq Cohen out there. I still think that the real Bears are a team that wants to control time of possession, keep it on the ground, limit mistakes, lean on the defense. This is the perfect game to do that. It's a perfect Jordan Howard.
It is
not even efficient, just like 22 carries, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. And lean on the Bears defense. Darnold's going to have a lot of trouble. It's really windy at Chicago. I'm going right back to him. He's sub 5K. I think that's pretty nice value for a guy like that.
Look, I'm thinking and hoping for the same, but it just feels like. Oh, and by the way, Allen Robinson is not playing either. So, I mean, you would hope that they would just lean on the run game here. Will they? Honestly, I have no idea at this rate. I really don't know. I really have no idea. But they should. They should, and that's it. So, outside of that, do you have interest in Trey Burton or Gabriel? My problem is, like, look, we can't predict. Maybe Darnold comes out and they go up on a 14-0 lead, and Trubisky throws a pick 6 and they have to throw. But it feels like a game where Trubisky's passing volume just doesn't need to be there. But Again, who knows?
I yeah, I mean, I've been wrong on the Trubisky side of it multiple times this
Yeah,
year.
me too.
I just really don't see that happening too often. Can it? Of course, anything can really happen. Not too interested in them. Anthony Miller, deep play. I guess he's got some talent. I'm not really looking to take aggressive stands with teams like this.
Me neither. Are you looking to take any aggressive stances with Baltimore or Carolina?
No, I do have a lot of Cam. I don't know how aggressive that will be, but I think
That's aggressive. I think that's very aggressive. I don't think Cam will be popular even remotely.
yeah. I mean, he's sub 6K, and all I'll say, unlike Russell Wilson, I think the tougher the matchup, the more Cam runs, and that floor is huge when he's the red zone. I mean, he's carrying in the red zone. He's running all over the place. The offense kind of flows through him. He got Olsen back. They're at home. I think for a sub 6K Cam, I'm definitely buying there.
I don't have any, but if Cam has a big game, I think you're in a really good spot. I think that's all I can say,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
people see Baltimore's defense and run.
and I get that. I just for and maybe this is counterintuitive. I really think all that does is solidify that Cam will take it upon himself more often than not, especially in the red zone.
No, I totally agree. And if they have a big game, it will be Cam. I don't think it'll be McCaffrey running for 150 yards.
Yeah, I don't have any McCaffrey this week. I honestly have
Me
a lot of
neither.
standalone Cam. I think because I'm banking on that rushing being a large part of it. On the other side of the game, real quick, I don't mind John Brown. He's been good, but it's a game that I'm pretty much staying away from.
John Brown is the one guy in this game that I don't have an issue with. Outside of that, I'm pretty much blanked. But Brown would be the one guy that I think is a fine play. Prioritizing him, no, not at all. But perfectly fine play. Uh, Colts and Oakland. I've heard a lot of like low key interest in this game from a lot of different people. Are you one of them?
I am. This is what
Okay.
happens. This is bad.
Okay.
This is where
Hey,
it's going to fall apart. The one nice thing is well, I guess it's nice and not nice. It won't fall apart till 4 o'clock. So for the first 3 hours of the slate, I will be kind of just chilling. And
yeah.
then I'm going to be playing guys like Jalen Richard, like Martavis Bryant, the worst. And I even have some Derek Carr. And the reason for that, you talked about, I think it was the Cincy game where you're saying, I like plays, but I don't like to stack it. If you stack the Raiders and you get it right, not only is that good, but the other plays are Gurley, David Johnsons of the world. It's not
Yeah.
like you're punting with Trenton Cannon and the made up
Right.
guys. So it's a double win. This is a cheap stack, and it's the Colts defense. I am in on the Raiders.
So with that said, and Derek Carr, that would mean that you're not on or Doug Martin.
No muscle hamster. Get him out
No
of here.
muscle. So you do have some Jalen Richard, however.
I played Jalen Richard 1 week. It was the week after they played the Rams. I think he had 0 points. But
Yeah. Yep.
week 2, this just seems. I mean, he's been consistently getting the targets, and he's 4,200. I think you can use him in cash. I think that the floor is there, and if he finds the end zone, that's more than enough to get you there.
All right. So you mentioned Martavis Bryant. You mentioned Jalen Richard. Let me ask you, being again that you have interest in Carr, thoughts on Jordy? Thoughts on Jared Cook? Amari Cooper's gone. No Marshawn Lynch, so they're going to have a tough time really generating any sustained, movement on the ground. Where do you stand on Cook and Jordy Nelson?
I get it. I think Cook is fine. I tried to get all the way up to Travis Kelce or down to Jimmy Graham, who we'll talk about.
I
Jordy
agree.
Nelson, I honestly, if I was playing hundreds of lineups and I had a ton of cars, say 30% or something, I would have some Jordy just because I think you should pair them up if you play him enough. The thing I like about Martavis, A, he's $1,000 cheaper, and B, and we talk about this all the time, he's in the bucket. If he has 3 catches, he probably gets there because one of them is going to be a 75-yard touchdown. I'm not looking to these guys for cash. It just feels like Jordy's more in the cash bucket where he might have 5 for 60. And
Right.
what is he really going to get you at 4.7K?
Yep. I am with you there. I would rather go to these other high volatility guys that have more upside. I don't have as much interest in Oakland as you, but I totally get the understand. I understand. Like if you stack them, the team stack goes off, and then all of your supporting cast is like 7,000 or higher
That's what I'm
in
saying. I mean,
price.
you pair up Richard and Tavis, that's 7,900, and Carr is in the five. So that's 15,000 for three guys.
Now, what about the Colts? Because you do have Jack Doyle back in the mix. Obviously, we have a healthy T.Y. Hilton. Ryan Grant's out. Zach Pascal, I don't even know if he's playing, but who cares? Like, you have the main pass catchers back. And then Marlon Mack. Marlon Mack is one of those guys that like has actually came back and actually had a really solid game. Are you running it back with anyone here? By the way, Marlon Mack is active. Breida's expected to play, but limited. This is just updates from 15 minutes ago from Adam Schefter, and Chris Thompson is officially active. Khalil Mack is inactive as well for Chicago. But go ahead. Yeah.
So I'll say this. I think the Raiders are cheap enough where you don't have to run it back because they don't need to have huge games to get there. When I have some T.Y. Hilton. I know he's better at home. The price is just not where it was. I don't know if it's because he was a little banged up and the Colts haven't been firing on all cylinders. He's the one guy that I feel pretty confident the volume will be there. They've got some weapons back in the passing game. Marlon Mack, I don't know. It's part that I think it feels point chasing-esque from a big game. I think the floor isn't as high as some might think. I think there's a lot of blow-up risk. And he's right next to Kerryon Johnson, Phillip Lindsay. You could go down to someone like Jordan Howard. It's just a tough range where I don't have him ahead of guys like that. So I didn't get to him.
That's one of the only reasons I do have any interest in him is because he is priced around all of those guys. That's, I kind of feel like, okay, Marlon Mack is clearly the odd man out, which means that he's clearly going to be the one to have that game that blows everyone away, and I don't have any. It just feels like that.
If he's and I don't, I think the ownership in that is somewhat similar. If there was a stark contrast where you're getting, say, Marlon Mack for 1/5, I would be more inclined. I don't think you're going to get that. I think they all fall plus or minus.
Well, that's a good point.
And that's, you're just not getting that much of an appeal. You're looking at more straight up, who do you like, Kerryon or Marlon Mack?
Right, because there's so many of them. Yeah, no, that's a very fair point. All right, let's move on. We got 2 games to go. San Francisco and Arizona. I think we can make this one relatively quick, and I'll just give you my quick take on it. First, I will go back to the well with David Johnson. Mike McCoy was a disaster as the offensive coordinator. And now you have Byron Leftwich, who was a Bruce Arians disciple. Like, I'll put it, if Johnson doesn't have his blow up game this week, now that things have changed, then fine. I'll stop talking about him. But I really like him this week in a game where it's very tough to see Arizona getting blown out. And even if they do, I think Johnson finally gets involved heavily in the passing game. And then on the other side, I think Mostert is actually a guy that I'm willing to look at in tournaments because he's so cheap. And Breida has nothing. Breida's hurt everywhere. And Alfred Morris is as decrepit as you could possibly get. So that's really it for this game. I think for me, Kittle is always in play just because he's the only reliable pass catcher in this game. But that's where I stand here. Talk to me about where you're at here.
Yeah, I think I said this the other week. I'm in the well. I'm not going back to the well. I'm drowning.
Right.
I've never
You've yet to climb out of the well.
I'm
correct.
Perpetually stuck in the David Johnson well.
Correct. Okay. Fair enough.
I don't know what else there is to say. Sub 7K at home against a garbage defense. Yes. We've seen time and time again he has been underwhelming, but I'm not playing him this week. I like him. I think Leftwich will help. They just need to get him in space. And this is defense that they should be able to do that. Now, I know when you bank on, I was talking to someone this morning, I said this, when you bank on stupid teams doing smart things, you end up like me, wondering why the Browns go 0-16 last year, because they're stupid. But I really think that this is the type of matchup that can hopefully unleash him. And I'm going to continue to buy, and you're right. If he underwhelms again this week, it's hard to ignore at this point because there's nothing more you could ask for in terms of different scenarios for success.
Right. No more excuses. Yep. That's it. We'd run out of excuses.
Um,
Anything for you outside of David Johnson? I told you where I'm at. I do have some Raheem Mustard. It's very risky. I totally understand that. But I could just see Breida getting like 2 carries and Mustard getting, not even kidding, like 15 and then being involved in the passing game. And quite frankly, like he has been the only dynamic guy over the last 2 weeks. You look at his, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think Shanahan can ignore his efficiency. One of them was a blowout, but even against Green Bay, 12 for 87. Like I don't think he's going to ignore that efficiency when Breida is playing with like half a body. There we go, Zach Ertz. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
Found the end zone.
He sure did.
All right. Yeah, I think a couple of things about this guy that are interesting. One, he's a nice pivot off Jalen Richard, who's going to be popular. And they kind of do the same thing. He is an asset in the passing game. I still don't think I'm looking to target him. He's another one that he opens it up. But it's playable. And these are the kind of guys that through bizarro things you do have to look to. I'm not going to have a ton, but I don't think you need a ton either. On certain lineups where I go aggressive and I need someone to just hold it together, you want to look to pass catchers because they don't have to do a lot. If he gets 4 for 32 through the pass, no matter what happens, he's not going to absolutely murder your lineups. And that's not that big of ask for a guy like that.
Right. And I think he's going to get a lot of work on the ground in a close game. All right. Last game. We don't have a lot of time for it, but we don't need it because we're just going to talk about the core plays, which is all that we have in this game. I am going heavy on Green Bay and the Rams. I think this is one of those games where, like, Jared Goff and the Rams are 8-point favorites, but you still have Aaron Rodgers throwing the football. Ben, I love Aaron Rodgers. I love Devontae Adams. I love Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks. I love this football game, man. I have a lot of it.
Yeah, it's hard not to. It's all in all the best game on the slate. Rodgers is my favorite QB as well. I like Jimmy Graham. Going to throw him in there. You know, the Packers wide receivers are starting. I believe Cobb is going to play. That's the tricky one for me. I don't know. I don't think I want to go to him, but it muddies the waters somewhat. The other side, it's the Rams. I mean, there's not much to say. It's Gurley, it's Cooks, it's Woods. Kupp is not playing, so it's those three. If you can get in, go ahead, fire away. I made the case last week. I'll say the same thing. You can afford Gurley. It's never going to be a bad play. He's as consistent as they come. But if he gets 30, and someone like Mixon, say he gets 22, that's the same, point per dollar. It may not feel it, but what you do with the remaining salary is where the difference. If some of the cheapies bomb, that's going to directly affect Gurley regardless of how good he is.
Absolutely.
And if you can pair up, say, David Johnson and Mixon for that same price, it could be a better move. So I, like most, I found a way to get to Gurley in cash. Not going to be there in tournaments, though.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then in terms of Cooks or Woods, because we don't expect Kupp to play, that's a really tough call. I think Woods has the higher floor. He also has a high ceiling. I'm going to be mixing them both up. I'm going to have some Geronimo Allison. Like I don't know. I guess the only concern there is that Marquez, what is it, Scantling? Valdez Scantling. Yeah. Had some big games, and I don't know how the usage is going to look, but I just expect a lot of points. And in the passing game for the Rams, they're going to have to function somehow, and it's not going to be Josh Reynolds. I don't expect it to be Gerald Everett. So Cooks and Woods definitely have my attention.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure, I will be in Slack. I can answer some questions. I'm just telling you now, if you ask me Cooks or Woods, I'm going to say flip a coin. I really don't see much to distinguish. You're right. Cooks, more risky just because he, tends to run some deeper routes, not as possession receiver-esque. But both of them have massive ceilings. I'll probably have more Woods than Cooks, and that's just on personal preference.
All right. I think that'll do it. Anything else you want to add before we head out?
No, I mean, another good I like these 10-game slates. I'm excited to attack it. Good luck, people. Give us a like if you can. I appreciate you watching. We love having the chat with us, and let's win $1 million. We're due, one of us.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, definitely hit us with a like. Helps us keep the lights on. We love giving you this content each and every day, and that's your little gift back to us.
That's
So
right.
it's greatly appreciated. Ben and I'll see you back here on the game plan next time. Yeah, live before lock coming up right after this. So don't go anywhere. Going to take you up to 1 p.m. I'm going to go finish this fourth quarter and see if the Eagles cannot blow it. All right. Good luck, fellas.